Hello. Good morning. Wow, I might need a glass of water. How are you doing, girl? Emily Claire McFarland, my beloved daughter. So today is what is it? The 17th of January, 2019. 19 years into the 21st century. 21st century video blogging. That's what we've got here today for you. Um, Today is a Thursday, and it is raining like crazy. It's been really wet the last couple days, and blustery and cold. And so I'm really thankful that we're getting a lot of rain. We need it. That's to say, that's for sure. Here in Southern California, it's always great to get rain. It reminds us that we're in a Mediterranean climate and not in a desert climate. At least it reminds me of that. Of course, this is a lot of rain compared to the rain that I used to get when I was growing up in New Mexico, when I lived in the high desert. I lived in Albuquerque and Taos, New Mexico, and for a time I lived in Socorro, New Mexico. Very little rain falls in those areas. Most of the rain, believe it or not, comes in the summertime during the monsoon season, where it rains every day for like 30 minutes or an hour over a period of a month or two. It's pretty weird. But I am really thankful to be experiencing rainy times here in Southern California. I have a feeling that this weekend, which I hear weather forecasts telling me that it's going to be a lot more clear, I'm looking forward to seeing the shoots of green grasses that begin to come out of the ground and flowers expanding and growing for this coming spring season. So that's always good news. So you might notice that I have my braces on still. They're still there. They're still on my teeth. And you might be asking, why are braces still on Miguel's teeth? I thought he wrote a letter to me yesterday suggesting that he was getting his braces off, his braces removed. Indeed, I did think that. And I was mistaken. Your dad is mistaken. Sometimes I don't have a clear idea of what the plan is. That's what I think is probably an area that needs a little bit of work for the practice of orthodontics, and that is, I don't really have a sense of what the future holds. I don't really have a plan. At least I haven't learned about one. Maybe I need to ask about the plan. But I hear that things are close, that I'm getting close. So that's true. I'm going to have braces on for at least another month. There are some adjustments that need to happen to my front teeth, apparently. And so that's going to take some time. Let's see, what else is going on? Well, I'm thinking about going to Universal Studios this weekend and going on some roller coaster rides and doing Waterworld and probably doing the studio tour, the Universal Studio tour. That sounds interesting to me. Another possibility is going to the Los Angeles Natural History Museum. That is something that's very interesting to me. That's the one near University of USC, University of University of California, Southern California. I don't know. I don't know what its name is, but that might be something to go check out. So let's. A couple days ago, I sent you a gift. It was a book called Attitudes of Gratitude by M.J. Ryan. And I thought that what we could do is we could have kind of a book club going on where I would describe highlights of the book that I've read. Now, I've read this book already through, and actually reading it a second time through right now. And so I've got some highlights that I took through the book, and I figured that I might touch on some of those highlights in the book, just say some of the quotations from the book and talk about them. And last we finished off last time talking about this idea of seeing things as new again. This is page 75, where there's a quote in the book that says, "So the solution is to see your loved one new again." That's right. See, what happens is that our brain is so accommodating that to change, that when change happens, before long, we stop appreciating it. We just become so accustomed to the way things are. And we often also focus on problems. So this whole idea of forgetting what's good and focusing on what's bad is just what brains do, right? They've been doing this for millennia. It's been a very effective way for keeping human beings alive. Look, we're still here. But it doesn't lead to a lot of happiness. And so in a way, we need to sidestep this biological tendency to avoid, ignore the good and focus on the bad. And so one strategy there is of sidestepping that problem is thinking upon things as if they are brand new. And, this perspective is actually quite easy to take. It's sometimes, I think in Buddhism, it's called beginner's mind. That is, you continuously take the attitude that this is the first time you've run into anything. That is, and when I say anything, I mean like your life situation, the things in front of you, maybe your own self, how you consider yourself. And in this case, in this book, it talks about seeing other people, particularly your loved ones, as new again. And what's interesting is that one thing that the brain catches on is novelty. In fact, I've had friends who are really good at sort of dressing up in costume, and I'm really impressed by that skill. They've really dialed in this whole idea of novelty, and the brain really reacts to things being different, people being in different costume or people using makeup in different ways. There's a reaction. We notice the differences and we appreciate the differences. And so this idea of novelty is something that's powerful. The human brain thrives on discovering novelties. And if there is any way for me to live my life in a way suggesting that all things are new, I think that would raise my level of happiness throughout the days, throughout the week and the month. So yeah, I definitely think that's an important ingredient. There's another quotation on page 76. It says, "Before you get so used to their kind words, his musical laughter, that they become invisible." Yeah, so the things that aren't novel become invisible. The things that we see every day just kind of vanish before us. They don't even exist. And, we adapt. Our brains are good at adaptation. And, I think this is important in a lot of other things too. It's good in social circles. I think it's also beneficial for people who are doing costumes. Anytime you want to signal something new, say to elicit attraction or things like that, that's definitely, using novelty could definitely work. I mean, if you think about it, humor and intelligence, those are ways of introducing novelty into conversation. Absolutely. So we talked about it in terms of fashion, in terms of maybe relationships. I know that there are people who really appreciate the idea of meeting new people. I mean, I'm one of them. I am very much interested in novelty when it comes to meeting new friends and meeting new people. To me, that novelty is interesting and important. One of the things that I like about roller coasters is this: there are so many different ones, and there's just this novelty surrounding roller coasters. Now, what if there was just one roller coaster, right? Would I enjoy roller coasters as much as I do, despite there being one roller coaster? And my answer, I think, would be no. But what's interesting about roller coasters is how different they are, and how the creators of them really strive to be imaginative and creative as they design roller coasters. And so I like the different themes, the different colors, the different um, configurations of roller coasters. Each one of those, and that all those things are important. Also people, when they eat food, novelty is critical to how much they enjoy food. I know I love going to Asian buffet restaurants, or buffet restaurants in general, partly because I get to sample foods that I haven't had in a long time or have never had at all. That's part of the draw of the buffet. The buffet is all about novelty, difference. There's something that our body really thrives on in terms of like things that are different. There's a lot of enjoyment, a lot of happiness. So what that suggests is that if you eat a food every day and you want to make it new again, prepare it in a new way. Instead of boiling, say, carrots on the stove, roast them in the oven. And instead of roasting them in the oven, cook them in the microwave. And instead of cooking them in the microwave, why don't you try steaming them, or maybe eating them as a hot dog? Or there's so many other options. And I mean, that's really what food is all about anyway. Food is all about novelty to a large extent. It's not always about that. Sometimes it's about comfort food, but a lot of the pleasure and enjoyment out of life comes from novelty, things being different. You know, Thankfully, every day is different. Every day of my life, every day of this year has been a different day. There's been different focuses. Um, I've had different levels of energy. Different perspectives and attitudes have been dominant in my mind. Yeah, in fact, that's what makes life really interesting. In fact, I think that I can really think of nothing worse than this whole monotony, this dull monotony that's rather boring, something that happens again and again and again without any change. Human beings thrive on change. Human beings are adventurous. And Emily, I'm a little bit curious in what ways your life is changing right now, and in what way your life is adventurous. I wonder how much adventure do you enjoy? Now, here's the thing. Sometimes change is a little bit too radical. It's a little bit too much, and it becomes uncomfortable because then we have to struggle to cope with the change. And human brains are very good at coping with change. Okay, next quotation. So page 86. The quote from the book is, "I decided to see waiting in line as a wonderful opportunity to slow down, to take a few conscious breaths, to become aware of my body, and release as much muscle tension as I could." So what MJ Ryan is describing here is a way to manage boredom, right? What happens when things aren't novel? Can you possibly make your life more interesting, more satisfactory, more satisfying? And I think the answer is yes. Why? Well, first of all, she described seeing waiting in line as an opportunity to slow down. So what that is if in my mind, it's about practicing a virtue. Slowing down is a virtue, and I know that I am pleased when I perform behavior that I think is virtuous. Take a few conscious breaths. That's about relaxation, fostering peace. Becoming aware of my body. That also is a virtue. It's about consciousness. It's about being mindful about the world. And this one also release as much muscle tension as you can. So this is about setting, essentially setting goals for improving your strengths, your emotional intelligence, your emotional maturity, and satisfying needs. Maybe she has a need for peace, a need for comfort, and she's satisfying those needs while waiting in line. So, it turns out that every moment is rich. It's rich with potential to improve your personality strengths and improve your virtues and how you exercise those virtues. It's every moment is like this creative endeavor of acting in the world, right? It's about developing virtues and strengths. So, what's the next quotation I have? Page 88. I highlighted, let the fact of our regard send us into the world with ever more appreciation for the gifts we have been given, and a commitment to communicate that appreciation as often as possible. So, this is also another important thing, and it has to do with the willingness to accept gifts. Now, have I ever accepted a gift in a thoughtless way? I have. In fact, I probably, accept gifts all the time in thoughtless ways. And I mean more than just presents wrapped in boxes with bows. I am really, sometimes a gift from a person may be a kind word, or it might be a gesture. A gift from a person might just be a glance, and or a smile. A gift from a person might be just a simple acknowledgement, or presence, being nearby, being in proximity to me. All of those things can be gifts. Subtle gifts, often quite subtle, sometimes ignored. And I think a key point is to sort of recognize them as gifts. People doing good around you, people benefiting you, helping you out, people being even people who are good examples, maybe people who are great at giving speeches or giving gifts, role models, in other words, are giving a gift of their behavior, to everyone who is watching and paying attention, and these are important gifts to receive, to acknowledge the receipt of, and also important gifts to say thank you to someone about. I think it is important to. A lot of the time, people give gifts. Like I remember, I don't know if you've ever heard of this book called The 5 Love Languages. It's an okay book, but the concept around the book, or the book that the book is built on, I think is worthy of attention. It has to do with parsing out how people express love to others. Certain people have certain preferences about how they like to express love, and also people have preferences about how they like to receive love. Some people love gifts. Some people like quality time. Some people love expressions of appreciation that are verbal or written. Some people like to receive gifts. Did I say that already? Some people also like to receive acts of service. Maybe they don't want a gift, but if you did the dishes for them, that would be something that would be highlighted in their mind. So, and along with that, not only do people receive gifts in certain ways, but they give gifts in certain ways. I know I have a tendency to give. I actually do give physical gifts. I like giving physical gifts. Another thing I like to do is uh, give my personal love style is when I give love, I like to give sort of words of appreciation. So I guess those are my my two main love styles. I love to give gifts, and I love to give words of appreciation. And I think of those two, giving words of appreciation is strong for me. Interestingly, I love to receive words of appreciation too, though receiving gifts is not important to me. Also, receiving acts of service, I actually kind of like acts of service. Here's the thing too about acts of service. Personally, I don't like to give acts of service. I know. That's rough, isn't it? I mean, I like to give some acts of service, but acts of service is not my strong point when it comes to expressing love. Really, I express love through giving gifts and words of appreciation. Now, that's not to say that I don't occasionally give acts of service. Sometimes I do. Another one part of my personality is I'm a supporter. I'm a supporter, and often what that means is giving gifts to, say, a person who's in the lead. Anyway, let's move on to. So I'm also on page 88. There's another quote. She says, "Let the fact of our regret send us into the world with ever more appreciation for the gifts that we have been given, and a commitment to communicate that appreciation as often as possible." So this is something that I could do well to improve. Recognize when gifts are given me, even subtle ones like glances or smiles, and then express appreciation for those gifts. hmm Yeah, I think I can do that. So on page 93, there's another quote. MJ Ryan says, "As I express my gratitude, I become more deeply aware of it." There definitely is like this consciousness raising aspect of giving gratitude. You know, it becomes a habit. I mean, you give it once on one day, you give it another time the next day, and then another time on the next day. It becomes this habit, right? It becomes this well-worn neural pathway where you're becoming skilled. In fact, it almost becomes automatic. Imagine being able to walk around exuding goodwill and beneficence on everyone who is offering things to you, offering gifts to you directly or indirectly. I mean, that sounds like an amazing life. Totally amazing. And I also like the idea that, as you express your appreciation, you learn about how to express your appreciation better, more meaningfully, more sincerely. Um, your consciousness is raised about your own expression of gratitude. You might develop standards, personal policies about expressing gratitude to others. As your consciousness is raised, not only might you develop more skill, not only might you develop a habit, but I think you also might develop an ability to praise yourself more readily. Express that internally in your minds, using your inner voice. And that can go a long way toward just helping your attitude in general. So, yeah, I think it's important to do some consciousness raising around the ways that you express gratitude. On page 93, there's another quote. There's another passage that states, "And the greater my awareness, the greater my need to express it." Absolutely. Yeah, you develop a habit and it's self-reinforcing. You feel good as a result of your expressions. And that brings you joy and happiness. And so that means you're more prone to do it again. And it's like this um, upward spiral where you are continually communicating your appreciation. And because you feel so good after you do it, and maybe even while you're doing it, you want to do it again, and then again, and then again, and again, and again. And it just becomes this snowball of gratitude, thankfulness, positive expression, regard for other people. You become basically this fountain of goodwill, and you've automatized it. And it's also something that's automatic. It's effortless. It takes almost no time, no energy. And, I think not only is your life benefited, but other people's lives are benefited. I mean, to me, that sounds like an amazing accomplishment, an accomplishment that I would be proud to have a part of my personality. The next passage talks about, is on page 94, where MJ Ryan states, "When I become ungrateful, things tend to fall apart." And I think that's really true. In fact, I remember, here's the problem with ingratitude. Ingratitude has a tendency to seep into other areas of your life. It's these sort of negative vibes that you're promoting in terms of your energy. When you give energy to these negative vibes, what happens is that there are knock-on effects. Maybe the average level of happiness in your life goes down. I wouldn't be surprised at that. Maybe relationships are a little more rocky here and there because, well, on average, you're also expressing these negative traits. It makes it hard for other people to love you when you're sort of expressing lower feelings. That's not to say that expressing lower feelings is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's important to do that. But I also think that there's some measure of self-care. In a way, in some ways, I think what's quite important is that you engage with your negative emotions with a lot of self-empathy. In a way, it's an emotional skill that individuals have to develop as they become more mature. It's for me, it's also kind of an indicator about how mature is this person. I know it might be a sign of, say, vulnerability or honesty for a person to sort of indulge in some of the negative thinking, but it can be construed another way. It can be construed in other ways in your relationships. It can make them more difficult, more raucous, more unsteady, more unstable. And, I think it might be inadvertent. I think what's a better thing to do is talk about your dreams and your wishes and your goals. I think emphasizing, say, your needs and wants is a lot more effective than sort of wallowing in misery. There are unsettling dynamics that arise when a person expresses negative thoughts and then receives attention from others for it. That could create a feedback loop that can hasten problems arising in people's lives. Absolutely. It's basically being rewarded for mismanaged emotions, in my view. All right, so there's another passage, a subsequent passage. This is a passage on page 102, and it says, "Like Paris, you have to practice or the muscle will wither. Developing the muscle of gratitude is just like exercising any other. At first, it'll seem awkward, weird, perhaps even hard to do, but if you keep at it every day, soon you won't even have to. So, this idea that gratitude is like a muscle, I think makes a lot of sense. Indeed, gratitude is like a muscle. It's a habit, it's part of a personality that's developed. It takes time and effort, energy, and also some degree of skill. Yeah. And, if you stop exercising it, I think you do indeed lose it. Yeah. And that is true with loving in general. Loving, I think, I think that actually might be one of the main hazards of singleness. And that is without getting a lot of practice loving another person, a lot of those skills can dwindle. And I think that can be a problem for future relationships. That's for sure. Okay, so there's another passage on page 105 that I highlighted. The book states, from being homeless to sitting in a $500,000 house. So a person can practice their gratitude no matter if they're homeless or if they're millionaires. Absolutely. Any person, whatever their condition is in their external life situation, I think can be improved with a little bit of gratitude. Like I said, I think that what our brains do in terms of ignoring the good and highlighting the bad, I think that's something that anyone with a brain can work on, whether they're poor or wealthy. Another passage on page 107 states, I feel exactly as I normally do, but now I notice how great that is. Yeah. See, all it takes is a change in attitude, a change in belief system, and and really, even if you feel normal, like you feel healthy, like I do right now, one can make improvements um, on how you're processing the present moment. Yeah. So there's another passage on page 108. The quote says, the trick, of course, is to learn how to have awareness without having to be sick, almost lose your house, or get hurt in a car crash. One way to do it is to pick an ordinary task, something you do every day, and decide that just for today, you will love it. Yeah. So this passage is talking about how quite often people get shocked into living their lives in different ways after bad things happen, like after they have a heart attack or after they get diagnosed with cancer or after they have a bad accident. It's often only then when people start changing their behavior and start being more grateful for the things around them. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be more optimal if people just decided, if people sort of decided to be grateful, even you know even when bad things don't happen? Yeah. I mean, why wait for a bad thing to happen before you decide to be grateful when you could be grateful right away, immediately? Yeah, it certainly is better. It strikes me as being better if one makes a decision to be grateful in the present, in the now, instead of it just you know, in a way, you could do it in anticipation of things going south on you. It's true. Life will go south on you, and in a way, this is kind of life insurance. In fact, I think it might even be better than gold. Because life tends to sort of crush people. People really struggle. Like right now, there are a lot of people struggling now with the partial government shutdown, and I think that a lot of pain and discomfort can be alleviated when people start tracking all the things that are going right in their life. All right, what's next? You know what? I think I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to pull out my pen here, and I think we went over a number of really great points. It looks like we stopped here. Yeah. So anyway, that was that. Maybe what we can do now is go to our question and answer period. So I've got a Kindle ebook that's got a lot of questions in it, and I'm asking myself those questions and telling you my answers to those questions so that you can get to know me a little bit better. So question number 192, what tests the limits of your sense of balance? So I'm taking this as a physical question. What tests the limits of my balance? Well, there was a time when swimming tested my limits. When you make a stroke and then another stroke and then another stroke, notice how my head moves back and forth in the water. Well, that can make a person really dizzy. And swimming used to make me dizzy, but it doesn't anymore because I guess my brain has become accustomed to changes in my body position. And there are there really aren't a lot of areas where I test my balance. So what tests the limits of my sense of balance? Well, there's some things. Skateboards. Skateboards test the limits of my sense of balance. I really struggle to get and stay on a skateboard. And not only that, but also inline skates. For some reason, I don't quite know what it is. I really struggle with balance on inline skates. And it's a little scary when I've tried to do inline skating in public, but I really struggle with balance so much that it's pretty much unsafe. I've at times I've inline skated and have just gotten a little bit frightened about me falling. And I think I've frightened other people about the possibility of my falling because I have a tendency to flail a little bit when I inline skate. I wish I were better at it. I think what I really do need are those, skates with four wheels, like little cars, and not the inline skate shoes. So definitely inline skating tests my balance. I haven't been surfing before, but I'm guessing that surfing would also test my balance pretty good. Now, there's some sports that I have really good balance at. Like I'm good at running. I'm good at walking. I've got good balance when I perform both those activities. Skiing, I'm also quite good at skiing and maintaining my balance there. When I used to ski, it would be very rare for me to fall. Just because I developed a really solid state of balance, a really solid sense of balance when I'm skiing, when I skied as a child. Let's see, what other things affect my sense of balance? I think that's it, mostly. Okay. Question number 193, how much of a people watcher are you? In what places do you find yourself people watching? So I'm very much a people watcher. Things that I'm looking at when I look at people is, I might notice their level of attractiveness. I might notice what they're dressing or what they're dressed as. And I might also ask myself what that dress or fashion is signaling. I like looking at people's clothes and what they're wearing. I also like getting new ideas for clothing and outerwear. In fact, I was at Universal Studios about a week or two ago, and this woman passed by, and she had this really cute hat on. And I was actually thinking about you, Emily, and I wanted to give you a gift of some sort. And I saw this hat on this gal, and I had to ask her, where did she get the hat? She said the Gap. And I actually did subsequently go to the Gap to look for the hat. But the particular Gap that I went to was closing. It's the Gap that was in San Luis Obispo, and they didn't have any hats. So, but I'm still keen on maybe giving you a gift of a hat. The hat that I saw on that lady. I just thought it was nice looking. So I do people watch. So I people watch to find out what they're doing, like what gadgets they're using. Are they using an ebook? Are they using Bluetooth headphones? Are they using a cell phone? Are they using any kind of gadgets like umbrellas that are working or they're working for them? The other day I saw this guy using an umbrella to get from point A to point B, say in a parking lot. And he was really struggling with it. In fact, the umbrella turned inside out. And, it was really raining. I happened to have my overcoat on. Essentially, it's a plastic shell that protects me from the rain. And that plastic shell was doing an excellent job of it. I was being protected. And I was thankful that I didn't have an umbrella because, I don't know, there's something about umbrellas that is just old technology. The technology is just so old. Umbrellas break. I was just thankful that I didn't have an umbrella. Umbrellas are a hassle, and particularly when they break or go backwards. It's like, what is this? What did I buy? Thankfully, they're inexpensive, but that also might be the reason why they break so quickly. Like I was in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, a couple weeks ago. It was raining there, and as I exited the subway, there are people who sell umbrellas. And they were selling umbrellas for like $5. And I had a feeling that these people sort of show up at the exit of the subways, sell umbrellas all the time. And I don't know. If they were selling overcoats or like ponchos, plastic ponchos, now that would be something that I think a lot of people could get into. Umbrellas, I don't know. They're not my thing. I remember, Emily, and I've mentioned this before, that you used to bring your umbrella when I walked you to Montessori school. And I just want to say that I still have strong memories of how cute you looked when you did that. All righty. So let's go on to the next one. Oh, you know what? The question continues. In what places do you find yourself people watching? Well, anytime I go outside, really. But mostly I find myself doing a lot of people watching when I'm at the mall or maybe when I'm at an amusement park. Sometimes when I'm at parties or gatherings, I'll look at what other people have and what's working for them. I'll also take note of what doesn't seem to be working for them. So if, let's say a person has, I'm at a potluck dinner and there's a dish there, I might look and see if that dish is working for them. Maybe they have a Dutch oven or a casserole dish or some other kind of kitchen equipment, and then what I'll do is I'll just, I'll imagine my life with that, having that tool. And I'll ask myself, would my life be better or worse if I had it? So, I'm not just looking at people. I'm looking at ways to improve my life. Although looking at people is quite interesting. By the way, people just are beautiful. Human beings in general, both sexes are beautiful. They're just beautiful. People are amazing. We're so, I don't know. People are amazing, just in general. And I like hanging around them and looking at what they do. It's kind of interesting to guess what their motives are, guess what their intentions are, guess what their drives and needs and wants are based on their behavior. It's kind of interesting to observe them. And in fact, I particularly enjoy observing people when they're exercising virtues of some kind. Say they are good at playing the violin or playing the guitar or singing. It really sort of sparks my joy when I get to notice and recognize when someone is doing a good job. You know, maybe they're performing, maybe they're not performing. Maybe that's just the way that they live. Maybe they tell a lot of jokes when they're around friends. You know, I love to see people expressing themselves and using their skills, and that's part of the reason I like to look at people, because they're so enjoyable to look at. They're always doing interesting stuff. Okay, let's see what else. Question number 194. What do you like and dislike the most about your current job? Well, I like cooperation and the sense of me helping. I really do have a strong, deep sense of me helping out in a lot of ways. What don't I like about it? Well, I sort of view the things I don't like as areas for me to improve. Often it's not that the problem is my jobs. The problem is that it's in my own personality. Sometimes a person's work can lay bare areas of improvement that need to be met in how I deal with situations. And, so I don't tend to blame my job for it. I tend to blame myself for it, which probably explains why I have such a positive view of my job, huh? All right, let's see what we got here. What's the next question? Question number 195. Whom do you call when you need a hand? Well, it kind of depends on what kind of hand I need. Who do I call when I need a hand? I don't know. It depends. Sometimes I'll call a contractor. I don't know. When do I need a hand? Really, I don't need a hand very often. If I need a hand these days, it's to do some kind of automotive repair or maintenance work. I don't know if I need a hand. I have no idea. Question number 196. What is your greatest physical challenge? Well, this is a good question. This is a question that I need to ponder and consider. My greatest physical challenge. Well, you know what? I'll tell you what my greatest physical challenge is, I think. I have a way of discouraging myself of lifting heavy things. And, it's a result of like emotional scarring that I received when I had some back pain a couple years ago. Now, it may be the case that lifting heavy things is not a problem for me. Not anymore. I just haven't tested it out. So I think that's my biggest physical challenge. And you know what? It's also that problem is translating into the gym too. For example, I don't do squats and deadlifts. So now I do a mechanical squat or machine squat. And it's not that I don't do leg press. I do leg presses, but I don't do deadlifts. I do other kinds of back exercises. There are a lot of back exercises I love to do, but I don't do deadlifts and squats. So, I would guess that is a serious weakness. And, it might make sense for me to sort of develop those skills. Yeah. That's my greatest physical challenge. Are there any other physical challenges that I have? I've just been surprised at how well my body does when it comes to physical challenges. I am really thriving physically. And I'm, in fact, quite often surprised at just how well I perform physically. It's my body is a master machine, and I'm so grateful that it is. That I almost have no limitations. In fact, I've been doing an exercise called the Jacob's Ladder lately at the gym, and I love it. Right now I can do 5 minutes on the Jacob's Ladder, which I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually quite a lot. A lot of people can't or don't use the Jacob's Ladder because it's actually quite a strenuous machine. And but I am fully confident that in about 6 months' time, I will be doing 30 to 50 minutes on the Jacob's Ladder. I'm 100% confident that I could do that. And the idea of me spending a half hour on Jacob's Ladder is just phenomenal. That machine at the gym has a reputation for being extremely strenuous. You could burn a lot of calories on that. In 5 minutes, I've easily burnt 60 calories, which is kind of a lot of calories for 5 minutes of work. So, but we're talking about my physical limitations, my physical challenges. I don't really have any strong physical challenges. I'm so grateful for that. If I do have any, it's this avoidance of lifting heavy things. Now, that's not to say I don't lift heavy things. I weightlift all the time, and I've got to pull weights off the weight rack, often measuring 50, 55 pounds. I just did a 60-pound easy curl barbell lift just last week. Or maybe, no, it was just earlier this week. I mean, that's lifting 60 pounds. It was part of a barbell exercise. A bicep exercise, not a back exercise. So I think, I don't know. I do a lot of things like that. So I do some lifting, but it's sort of inadvertent. It's not on purpose. Or it's very controlled, like through the use of machine squats, where I'm actually doing squats, but inside of a machine. Anyway, I guess it's time for me to sort of wrap things up. I'm getting a little antsy about the future and what I need to do next in order to get out the door. So Emily, let me wrap things up here. And I just want to say how much I've enjoyed this time I've spent with you. Thank you for being willing to discover a little bit more about me. I really appreciate this time where we can work on our connection with each other and, develop common interests in the process. And I like this idea that you're sort of learning more about me, and I also, by extension, get to learn a little bit about you. Now, it's true, there's no face-to-face interaction, but I think what I can do is just explore my own personal views and perspectives, give you a little bit of insight into those as well. And I think that there is some, believe it or not, I think that there is some benefit when it comes to me exploring you and my thoughts about you. I just think there is. There's a little something there. There's a little gold nugget there. And I want to harvest as many little gold nuggets as I can. All right, girl. I will talk to you later. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. This weekend promises to be really beautiful with lots of sunshine and lots of wonderful weather. I think the temperature is going to be on the order of 70, 71, 72 degrees this weekend. So it'll be a welcome respite from the rain and the wind that we've been experiencing lately. So I hope that you have a fantastic day. Rest of the day today, fantastic day at school. I hope you continue to do well, and I will talk to you later. Peace and out.